Hey guys, and welcome to another episode. Today in this video, I'm going to show you how to replace an engine mount on your car. So today we're working on the Volkswagen Golf again with a little broski, and we're going to be replacing the dog bone mount underneath the engine. And what it does is it keeps the engine in place under torque. So when you're driving and you're putting load on the car, the engine is actually going to shift forwards and backwards depending on if you're braking, depending on if you're flooring it or whatever. And there's one mount on the bottom that's holding the engine in place from keeping it from going too far backwards or too far forwards. And over time, it'll deteriorate and it'll need to be replaced with a new one. So this is what the dog bone mount looks like. And over time, the rubber that's on here will deteriorate and it'll start to crack. Now, if you're at it, if you want to replace this with a very nice high quality one, you'd replace this with a new mount that comes with polyurethane bushings. Now, in this situation, this is just an OEM Volkswagen part, so it's not performance orientated by any means, but this is still going to be better than the one that we have on the car. The one that's on there has been mounted on there since it was new, and the car has just over 200,000 kilometers on it. So installing a new dog bone mount on the car is going to do the car well. So we're underneath the engine bay right now, and we've got the transmission right here and the engine on the left. And if you can tell, our dog bone mount is going to be found behind that. So this dog bone mount is going to be needing to be replaced, and we're going to be taking it out in a matter of no time. So when we remove this engine mount, we don't need to support the engine by any means, only because this engine mount only controls the engine from moving forwards and backwards. It doesn't support the engine, all that it does is stabilize it. So with that being said, we can proceed to take some of these bolts out of the engine and out of the mount. So the first bolts that we're going to be removing are the ones that are attached to the frame of the car. So the ones that we have on the back, the two back there, we're going to be removing those both with a 13mm socket. So just take them out and set them aside. So with those two bolts removed, we can then proceed to the front part of the engine mount. So as you can tell, we've got two bolts right here that are attached to the transmission. One of them that's attached up front, that goes directly to the transmission, and the other one that is attached to the engine mount. So you've got the bushing that goes inside of it, and it leads right up into the tranny. And we're gonna be taking both of these out so we can swap out and replace this engine mount. So with this dog bone mount removed, the engine might swing back a tiny bit, so just don't be alarmed if that happens in your situation, but just take note that it can happen. So first things first, take out the first bolt at the front, and then loosen up the back one. Oh, see how it moved? Yeah. So the engine and transmission can shift at this point when you remove that bolt, so just be careful. Now, it's not going to drop on you by any means because it's actually supported by the engine mounts in the top of the engine bay. This one right here only supports it from going forwards and backwards. Now, this type of engine mount down here, you're most likely going to find in a front engine, front wheel drive car, just like this Volkswagen Golf. So once you remove that, the engine mount and everything should be able to come right out. Now, in our situation, the back part back here is actually corroded to the frame. So if you just get a little pry bar or screwdriver or something and pry it out, or a hammer, that'll work too. If you get any of that, you'll be able to hit this out and replace it with a new one. That's how it's done. So we've got our new engine mount to the left and our old one on the right. Now over time, the rubber bushings, both found on the front and rear side of the engine mounts, are going to deteriorate and start to crack. They are cracked and tearing on these ones right here, on the old ones, but it's actually hard to tell only because of the amount of dirt that's on there. But when you come in here, if you get a close-up of this, but if you come in close, you should take note that your bushings shouldn't have any tears, cracks, or anything else for that matter. If they are cracked or anything, you should replace it with a new one. So as you can tell here, this is the old bolt that we removed from the back side of the subframe. And we're going to just clean up all the rust on there with a bench grinder. Now you can use a wire wheel, you can use hand tools or anything, but as long as you clean it up, you're going to be doing yourself good. So that's just going to make sure that when we install this back on the car, should we need to take it out down the road, it's going to be easy to replace.
You gotta move the light, I can't see.
You're fine. So for the new engine mount, when you install it, you're gonna push it back into the subframe at the bottom. Hey Luca, turn it upside down. Yep, there we go, right side up, there we go. So push the back end part first into the subframe. Are you gonna do it?
Oh.
You can do it. Push it in like that. And then once you have everything lined up, just push those bolts that we took out, put them back in, and then tighten them up. Now you're gonna want to install them back into the reverse order that we took them out. So the first one is gonna be this one right here in the center. And then it's gonna be the one on the left of that. And then the two smaller ones back there. So before you put them in and tighten them up securely, you first want to put them in by hand to make sure that they all align properly. Now, if the engine or transmission isn't lining up properly, remember that you can move it forwards or backwards. Now, right now, this is going to be very easy only because this dog bone mount is the only thing that's securing it from moving forwards and backwards. So you should be able to push it with just a push of a finger. So now that everything's in hand tight, you can then go ahead with your socket and ratchet and tighten everything up for good. So again, tighten it up in the reverse order. So the first one here in the center, and then work your way to that bolt back there. And then you move to the two bolts on the back, and those are being secured in by a 13mm socket. So with the engine mount now installed on the car, you're actually going to be able to make a little bit more power to the ground because instead of the engine twisting and moving backwards whenever you're accelerating, the engine is going to be upright and you're going to be getting that power pushed forwards onto the axles and then to the wheels. Now if we take a look at the top in the engine bay, if you're going to be replacing, say, one of the engine mounts up here that are, say, supporting the weight of the vehicle, you're actually going to need to support the engine to make sure that when you take this out, the engine doesn't drop down, so that when you replace it, it's not going to be hanging. So if you're going to be taking out and replacing one of these things, you're going to need a jack on the bottom side of the engine that's holding it up. You can use a jack, you can use a cherry picker, you can use whatever way you want. But you have to make sure that you support the engine because if you don't, you might potentially even damage another engine mount that you have in the car. So in this situation, say you were to replace this engine mount, you'd want to remove and move aside anything that's in the way for the bolts that are down there. Now you're going to have bolts on the front and on the back that are securing it in. And then from underneath, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to support the engine by a jack or any kind of way that you can. Now right now this is on the bottom part of the engine and it's supported with a jack and a piece of wood. Now if you can get a long piece of wood, you're going to be spreading out the weight of it a lot better. So that's going to be saving your engine and you're not going to be damaging anything. So have it set up like this, take the old engine mount out and replace it with a new one. Now make sure that when you're doing this, you are supporting the weight of the engine because otherwise the engine is going to want to drop as soon as you take out that engine mount. So just keep that in mind. So this is the old mount that we removed from the car and this is on top of the engine. So if we take a look at the rubber bushing and everything, we can see that there's a lot of play when you try and flex this. And if you get a close-up of all this stuff, the plastic, or not the plastic, the rubber is actually cracking. See that? See the little tear underneath? So this right here needs to be replaced. If we take a look at our new one and we try and do the exact same thing and put pressure on it, it's a lot firmer and it's not moving as much. And again, if we take a closer shot of all this, because this is all new, the rubber isn't cracked. So this is going to make a big difference on how the engine feels when we drive. If you guys have any questions regarding the video, throw them down in the comment section below and I'd be happy to help. Again guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Wait.
Stop. You're so ugly, oh my god. It's okay, well don't put it in your mouth. Okay, well then like just put it up to your mouth and pretend like you're eating it. It's a dog bone mount for a reason. Was that so difficult?
Yeah, now my
Was that difficult?
Now my mouth tastes like aluminium.
It's fine.
Oh, gosh.
You still should have replaced it with polyurethane ones.
Yeah, well, you still should have not sucked that dick, but you still did.
Now they think I'm gay.
Yeah, actually, whatever. No. Okay, so for the new engine mount.
Okay.
Can
put it in?
Yeah, hold up. Okay, wait. Okay, so for the shut the fuck up.
Oh my gosh.
Damn.
Yes.